Today I want to focus primarily on Sigmund Freud and the psychoanalytic theory that he helped to develop and popularize. It was a huge, highly influential movement for much of the 20th century, but I want today just to focus on some of what I take to be the core aspects of Freud's own development of that theory. So, Sigmund Freud is a psychologist who was trained as a physical scientist primarily as a biologist. He did a lot of work on the neurobiology of fishes in the early part of his career, and the reading that I want to have associated with our discussion today is a book of his called Introductory Lectures of Psychoanalysis that was the record of a series of lectures. When you read Freud, part of what I think you'll find interesting is that he has his own version of the Socratic Method. Freud comes interestingly close and makes a provocative methodology in the process, and that is you'll often find him making statements, making hypotheses, offering explanation of phenomena, stating his position. But then you'll see him say things like this: I can hear an objection arising from you now. Not because he's literally claiming to hear somebody making an objection, but rather he's imagining an interlocutor raising a worry about his point of view. He's imagining someone resisting what he's saying in a certain way, and then will come back and respond to that with his own counter-argument. This is a good method for argumentative writing and speaking for the reasons that not only does it give you a chance to state your position and your reasons for it, it also allows to the allay some of the skepticism and the doubts that an audience might have. If you're able to do that successfully to bring them over to your side, that's much more fully. So it's an aspect of Freud's methodology that is interesting and I think fairly successful. But there are peculiarities of what Freud refers to as psychoanalysis, and one of them is that, as he says, objective of verification for that theory. When asked how one knows whether that theory is true, his answer is, well, one learned psychoanalysis on oneself by studying one's own personality. As most experimental psychologists and neuroscientists today will tell you, that probably is not a very good methodology because it doesn't involve random sampling and controlled trials. So this is not a methodology that would pass muster according to contemporary theorizing. Even on Freud's own terms, that statement of his doesn't quite fully represent his way of justifying his theory. In the background of some of his theorizing, there's a principle which is itself perfectly objective and allows theorizing to be put up to scrutiny that anybody can assess, and that is what philosophers of science have referred to as a principle of inference to the best explanation. Inference says the following: when you are confronted with a puzzling phenomenon or a range of phenomena, adopt that hypothesis if there's one that best explains it. First of all, I know it's not always clear what counts as best, but the best explanation, sometimes explanations seems appealing, but they're not the best. We might notice that being the best explanation might be because all the other explanations are terrible, and this one that you have is mostly okay. That might not make it acceptable. We might need to have an explanation be above a certain threshold. All those qualifications in mind, we can still say that part of what Freud's methodology seems to presuppose is that when you've got something puzzling, you should look for the explanation the most directly, simply, effectively, and we'll be asking ourselves whether the theories of Freud gives are consistently of the sort. If so, maybe he is justifying his position in an effective way.